People who cannot learn from history are doomed to repeat it. You know, that's a powerful warning from the philosopher George Santayana, and it really sets the stage for what we're talking about today as we look back at a truly defining and difficult chapter in the history of the Philippines.
So let's begin where this whole story was said to have started, with a promise of order. And this promise was used to justify a move so drastic it would change the course of an entire nation forever.
Okay, so the date you need to know is September 21st, 1972. That's the day President Ferdinand Marcos Sr. signed something called Proclamation 1081. And with just that one signature, the entire Philippines was placed under martial law. I mean, think about that. How do you even explain a move like that to the public?
Well, the Marcos administration had an official story. They gave three main reasons. First, they said they needed to fight a growing communist insurgency. Second, they had to suppress secessionist movements down south. And third, they were going to reform the whole country into what they called a new society. So those were the official promises made to the Filipino people.
But here's the thing about those promises. They very quickly gave way to a completely different reality. So now we have to turn from what was said to what was actually done. And this period, well, it's remembered not for order, but for absolutely rampant corruption and abuse.
And the contrast? I mean, it couldn't be more shocking. You have the promises on one side. Peace, order, a new society. And then you have the reality on the other. Horrific human rights abuses, corruption on a scale that's hard to imagine, and a media that was totally silenced. Any kind of dissent was just crushed.
So you might be asking, how did they get this much control? A huge piece of the puzzle is a legal term called the writ of habeas corpus. It sounds complicated, but it's actually a basic protection we all have. It stops the government from just arresting you and throwing you in jail forever without a reason. And suspending that right, well, that was one of the first and most powerful weapons the regime used. Once that protection was gone, the dominoes fell. Arrests could happen without warrants, to anyone, at any time. The government seized control of all the TV stations, radio, and newspapers, so you only heard their side of the story. And critics, especially activists and students, face kidnappings and killings. So many are still missing to this day. And all the while, the country's money was being stolen by the people in power. But you know, power like this, it's never absolute. No regime, no matter how strong it seems, lasts forever. And that's where our story takes a turn. We're now going to look at the events that lit the spark that would eventually become a full-blown revolution. This was the nation's turning point. And things started to happen fast. So, in 1981, they officially ended martial law. But really, it was just on paper. The authoritarian rule didn't stop. Then, in 1983, one single shocking event lit a fire under the entire nation. And by 1986, that fire had exploded into a revolution that the whole world was watching. So what was that catalyst? It was the assassination of Benigno Ninoy Aquino Jr. He was Marcos's biggest political rival, and he was shot and killed the moment he stepped off the plane, returning from exile. That one act, it was the final straw. It took a population that was just tired and weary of the dictatorship and united them, turning that exhaustion into real, active resistance. And all that resistance, it all built up to one of the most incredible events of the 20th century. Seriously, we're talking about the People Power Revolution, a 4-day uprising, mostly peaceful, that just completely captured the world's imagination. So how on earth did they do it? It started with peaceful protests along a major highway in Metro Manila called EDSA. But then millions of regular people, men, women, children, showed up. They literally formed human barricades with their bodies to protect military leaders who had decided to switch sides and join them. It was this unbelievable display of unity. There was no stopping it. And just like that, the Marcos family was forced out of power. And on that exact same day, February 25th, 1986, a brand new chapter began for the Philippines. Corazon Aquino, Ninoy's widow, was sworn in as the new president. She became the first woman to ever lead the country and really a global symbol for democracy. So after all that, you might be thinking, why do we keep talking about this? Why is it so important to look back at this history?
What are the echoes from that time that we can still hear today? And really, why does remembering any of this matter to us right now?
Well, it brings us right back to where we started. People who cannot learn from history or doomed to repeat it. The whole story of martial law, from the shiny promises to the dark reality, and then the incredible triumph of the people. It's a huge lesson for all of us. It's a warning about what happens when power is abused, but it's also proof of what can happen when people stand together.
You see, the lessons from this time, they aren't just words in a history book. They're etched into the memories and stories of every single person who lived through it. And so the challenge for our generation and the next is to answer this one final question. How are we going to make sure that those stories and the powerful lessons they teach us are never, ever forgotten?